Hello, my name is Lauren and welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel where, yes, I am using a microphone today and it makes me feel super fancy. Also, I have felt incapable of making a short video lately. Seriously, the last time I made something under 20 minutes was in October, and before that, it was a year ago. And looking forward to future ideas, I sent some even longer projects up on the docket, so today one of my main goals is to just share something simple. This is a video about Frozen, specifically the music in the film, something that we have discussed at length before.
The past is in the past.
But right now, I just want to focus on something cool I noticed in the soundtrack. No hours of research or Easter egg hunting for a theory, no tracking down academic arguments and quotes for reference, no calculating the exact danger posed by a hypothetical alien who can cause an earthquake or power a lighthouse or freeze an entire Hawaiian island.
Cold never bothered me anyway.
Just a simple observation about the original Frozen soundtrack that I have never, ever heard anyone else ever bring up, and I want to know if it'll blow your mind too. Because I am dying to know if I am the only person on Earth who's ever noticed this. Wow, I say I'm making a short video and then I go ahead and play our whole intro? How hypocritical of me. Anyway, earlier this year, Disney announced their plan to produce a third Frozen movie at some point in the near future. My guess is November 2026, calling my shot right now. But hearing that announcement, and due to some super secret reasons that I hope will make sense someday, that made me really motivated to go and re-listen to the soundtracks from both Frozen 1 and 2. And typically, if I'm listening to either of these on either Spotify or CD, because yes, I still have a functioning CD player in the year of our mouse overlord and savior 2023, I will listen to the entire thing all the way through, including the instrumental versions and outtakes, which are deleted songs from the soundtrack, which are honestly really hit or miss for me. Like, I love Life's Too Short, Reindeer Remix, and sometimes Home, but honestly, Get This Right is kinda overrated, or at least as overrated as a deleted song from a sequel to an animated movie can be. And it's not like Spring Pageant or You're You are winning any awards here. Now, for many of these songs, it's easy to see why they were cut from their films. For instance, Spring Pageant is all about a prophecy that wasn't utilized in the final version of Frozen, so it doesn't make sense to set that up in Act 1. Similarly, Life's Too Short mentions the same prophecy, which never made it to screen.
Maybe you are the prophecy. I am not the prophecy.
But I totally agree with Kristen Anderson Lopez. I would have loved going to that drama place. But other songs I think were only cut because elements of them were clipped out and developed into better songs that did make the final cuts. More Than Just the Spare expresses less of Anna's personality than what would eventually become For the First Time in Forever, which also attempted to progress the plot in a way that More Than Just the Spare never did. And Your You is painfully slow compared to its counterpart, Love's an Open Door, and really only worked when paired in conjunction with More Than Just the Spare. But I think the best example of trading one outtake for a much better developed version of a similar song is when we traded We Know Better for Do You Want to Build a Snowman? Both of which are at least partially sung by the child versions of Anna and Elsa. But Do You Want to Build a Snowman is more heartbreaking and progresses the plot, and it's catchier and it handles the time jump over a 10-year period really well. Of course, this video is actually about We Know Better, so please disregard anything about any other song on the soundtrack that I have said so far. Maybe this is why my video scripts are so long. For all of you who are still watching, We Know Better sounds like this. And is about the two sisters growing up as princesses, semi-rebelling against their prescribed societal role.
They say a princess is full of charm and grace. They say she always knows her place.
Basically, the idea is that Anna and Elsa hear all of society's expectations for them and then reject them on principle. They're told that a princess should be charming, well-behaved, kind, not constantly mentioning her underwear, etc.
No one can tell us what a princess should be, as long as
know better because they understand that their bond is much stronger than a prescribed societal role that ostracizes them from their resentful subjects. You know, a nuance that your typical 4-year-old should naturally have a decent grasp of. In a nutshell, We Know Better is about rejecting the confines of societal expectation. Or at least that's what the first half of the lyrics are about, which were the only ones that were ever recorded and officially released. The second half of the song only exists on paper, and totally sets up Elsa as more of an antagonist than she ever ended up being in any official release of the story, which is really neat, but I digress.
Never underestimate the power of snow and ice.
So, We Know Better was cut from the official Frozen soundtrack, but leaves behind 2 significant fingerprints on the rest of the franchise. One is in the Broadway musical, which I will now reluctantly mention. So the opening song of the musical is called Voile/Let the Sun Shine On, and incorporates melodies from Voile, Do You Want to Build a Snowman, For the First Time in Forever, Frozen Heart, and We Know Better. And probably some others that I just didn't catch on to in my initial listen because it's basically an overture for the rest of the score.
Elsa, no! What did we say?
Magic must stay secret.
There are just some things we can't do in public.
Like run naked in the breeze!
Anyway, there's a portion of that opening song that sounds like this.
1, 2, 3 together, clap together, snap together, you and me together, knees together, freeze together, up or down together, princess crown together, always be together, you and me.
Which is directly lifted from this.
1, 2, 3 together, clap together, snap together, you and me together, knees together, freeze together, up or down together, princess crown together, always be together, you and me.
I think the fancy music term for this is interpolated, but please feel free to correct me in the comments below if I'm actually just looking for the word sampled. So yeah, in the musical this just seems like a reference or an Easter egg to the original outtake. There's not much deeper meaning to including the clapping game other than maybe showing the camaraderie that Elsa and Anna had when they were children. And to be honest, that's fine, but it's not that cool. Certainly not worth making a video about. Also, not everyone's heard the full Broadway soundtrack for Frozen. Like, we're just walking down the street passing people. How many of them do you think know the song Voile/Let the Sun Shine On? So it's not that mind-blowing to know that some music from a deleted song was featured in another song that no one's even heard of. Except, music from We Know Better actually does appear in a song that you've heard before. Like, I can guarantee 100% you have heard this song even if you've never seen the original film. Because you can find it in the middle of Let It Go.
Let it go, let it go.
Okay, obviously not that part. The part that goes this one. I don't blame you if you were distracted by the whole building a magic ice castle part of that clip the first billion times you heard it. But haven't you ever wondered why that portion of the song sounds nothing like the rest of the score? Let It Go itself has a pretty basic structure. It's an intro, verse 1, chorus 1, verse 2, chorus 2, crazy instrumental part, bridge, chorus 3. You know, because having 3 different choruses and a key change from relative minor is super easy to sing for little kids.
I don't care.
But that crazy instrumental part should be pretty familiar to you at this point because it is the exact same melody from the intro to We Know Better. Which genuinely shocked me the first time I noticed this. Like, it's been over a decade since the first Frozen film came out. How many times have I heard Let It Go before? And to actually discover something new in my listening experience, I had heard these notes passively for years, but now I feel as if I actually understand why they were included. Unlike when the same material was frivolously quoted in the Broadway musical, the melody here is inserted into Let It Go in an extremely pivotal moment. And I think it's an intentional use of musical rhetoric, specifically leitmotif, in order to convey a similarly pivotal moment in Elsa's character arc. And metatextually, it conveys an extremely important turning point in her character's development. It's pretty common knowledge at this point that, like in The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen, the fairy tale that Frozen is based on, Elsa was supposed to have a more antagonistic role in the film. But when Jennifer Lee, Chris Buck, and the other filmmakers heard the Anderson-Lopez couple's work on Let It Go, they decided to reorient the entire film around Elsa's character development. So the story went through some serious rewrites and got rid of both the prophecy narrative and Elsa's moral downfall. Hence why We Know Better is only available as an outtake, especially the second half of the song, which wasn't even included on the extended version of the soundtrack. And yet, the main motif from the track still ends up smack dab in the middle of the most famous and iconic song in the film. Which makes sense on our timeline, right? We Know Better was first developed to match the more traditional villain arc, then quoted in Let It Go, and then scrapped when the story changed. Which explains why the remnants from the original melody are only found in this song. Let It Go is a bridge between two entirely different movies. But why was this leitmotif included in the first place? Well, if you look at the role of Let It Go in Elsa's character, this is the sequence where she finally rejects the societal expectations enforced on her by her parents, and reclaims the freedom that she had with her powers back in her youth. Before the gloves, before her isolation, and before the self-policing legacy of her parents' death. But in the original draft of the film, this concept of rebellion already had a musical identity in the score. It sounded like this.
You and me, we know better.
Building a castle made of ice is a symbol of the life Elsa wants, but framed in the language that she's been raised in. As a princess with powers that her parents considered a curse, of course the home she builds herself in isolation is a perversion of the one she left behind. A castle, the prescribed societal role, made of ice, her freedom and individuality. Let It Go was meant to be a realization of We Know Better, so it included a restatement of the themes set up in the original song. As children, she and Anna suspected that their role as princesses came with arbitrary constraints, but as she grew into adulthood, Elsa bought in to the narrative of fear and self-loathing. And this sequence is where she remembers the ideology of her youth. However, I've mentioned in at least one previous video that I actually believe Let It Go is a lie to the audience and that the claims it makes are actually false themes in the narrative. Full video by clicking the card. Basically, the lesson Elsa learns in the end is yes, embrace her powers, but also temper them with a healthy dose of self-awareness. You cannot let everything go and still remain in control. And this realization fits directly into that narrative. Elsa is trying to reclaim the freedom she had before she feared her powers. But she's forgotten that a crucial part of what she knew better was her relationship with Anna.
No one can tell us what a princess should be, as long as we're together, you and me.
Rejoicing in isolation was never the true goal. That's why the film ultimately ends back in Arendelle, with Anna and the sisters reunited in their original bond. Elsa's arc of self-actualization, which actually spans 2 films at this point, was initially built on a musical motif that has been erased from the franchise. It now only exists in fingerprints on other songs. And I don't know if that makes it an effective tool, or if it even still can be, when the majority of a film's listening audience is not going to play the extended cut of the soundtrack on repeat. But I, for one, am glad that the puzzle pieces still exist out there for those of us who know better than to settle for the theatrical cut. Anyway, that was something cool I noticed in Frozen. Have you ever heard anyone else bring this up before? Because for the amount of airplay this song gets, I could not believe I discovered this on my own. How did someone not point this out to me sooner? Also, I have no idea what Frozen 3 is going to be about. I feel like the filmmakers have left themselves no room to develop any new story in this world. But I guess I'm excited to see what they come up with. And now for your obligatory calls to action! You can subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and give us a like if you like this video, and besides you're already down there. You can follow us on Twitter at theory_central to avoid being locked in your room to the point where you're too agoraphobic to go out and attend your own parents' double funeral. And consider supporting us on Patreon, like the incredible David W. and Alex Del Quinto, two people who I highly suspect are sorcerers. I will be leading a manhunt at dawn. But until then, thanks for watching. We Know Better also gives off major I Want to Be Like Other Girls from Mulan 2 soundtrack vibes. And I'll see you later.
We enjoyed going to that drama place.